Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I would like to talk with you about unconditional acceptance. What do we mean by this term? Let's try to imagine it together now. Pause the video and write down somewhere what this term means to you, and then we will continue. We will compare your answers. So, let me try to put myself in the shoes of someone who has unconditional demands for acceptance from the world. Most likely, this will be about my sense of permissiveness, because I want to do whatever comes to my mind whenever inspiration strikes. I am allowed to express my rage. And when I express my rage, the other person should not respond to me in any way, and they should simply tolerate it. I can be emotionally wound up, I can be hysterical, I can be lazy, and for all of this permissiveness of mine, the world must, at the very least, it should be in agreement with me, and ideally even be happy about it. And certainly, it should not treat me any worse after I have acted this way. And our need for this openness and permissiveness, for this demand, this expectation toward the world, about the nature of our need for such acceptance and understanding. The longing for unconditional acceptance comes from our infancy. Each of us had a period when no one expected anything from us at all. We were little, lying in our cribs or strollers, and all we could do was receive. We didn't have to restrain anything, and we weren't even capable of restraining ourselves. And this memory of complete permissiveness remains with us as a memory of the fullest self-expression when nothing conditioned that expression. Unconditional acceptance, acceptance without conditions. I spread out like the sea and fill all the space around me, and I don't need to shrink myself or control what's inside me. I am this completely, and we freely let it spill outward. Even going to the bathroom, as infants, we didn't have to make it to the toilet. We could do everything right there, and then we were washed, changed, and everything was fine. This kind of emptying out of oneself, of everything inside, gives a certain feeling, a feeling of being, of the fullest sense of being. And when this standard remains our benchmark, meaning we don't perceive this sense of being as something from infancy, it remains in us as a sweet, comforting dream that we keep reaching toward without noticing. It becomes our inner standard, our quiet example. And when reality doesn't match it, the world starts to feel unbearable. Then there is a lot of suffering and pain, because when I compare things to how I would like them to be, I don't get what I want. And a person who does not bring the need for this unconditional acceptance into their awareness is constantly in a victim state. The world constantly wounds them, constantly gives them something other than what they desire. And because of this, a person experiences a lot of anger, either toward themselves as someone who cannot create unconditional acceptance, or toward the world, which for some reason refuses to provide it. And there is especially a lot of resentment and anger when I make an effort. A person tries to be accepted by others. But in this effort, the other person is not truly present. A person pours out onto another what they believe is necessary, what they are able to give. They cannot be genuinely interested in the other person because all their efforts are truly focused solely on themselves. And so the other person is always assigned the role of a character in some kind of theatrical production that I am staging for myself. As a result, an entirely utilitarian attitude toward others develops. But the person is not aware of this, because in a way they are using themselves as well in order to obtain this unconditional acceptance. Then others become like pillows that you constantly fluff up so that they are as comfortable as possible for your body. And this attentive care for the pillows you so carefully and gently fluff every day is often, and quite mistakenly, perceived by others as an act of self-sacrifice. But in reality, if we pause and think deeply about this idea, this sacrifice, let me speak for myself here, it's actually me sacrificing myself, giving up my own comfort or desires for the sake of others. For the sake of my ideal image, I keep holding on to it. And because I need you for my inner play, I sacrifice myself in the process. So that you treat me with kindness and respect and give me this genuine, unconditional acceptance, because in those moments when I can't hold back, you won't turn away from me, since I have been good for a long time. And this ideal, it may influence a person to a greater or lesser extent, but it still has an effect. And when a person is excessively eager to please, it indicates that there is an opposite side. That is, through my behavior, I am showing how I would like to be treated myself. The more I try to please, the more I will expect this same eagerness to please from others. This dream has a dark side. And in this dark side, there is a lot of resentment, pain, and hurt. How can we create unconditional acceptance for a person? When we create it for someone else, let's look at this process from a different perspective. When we create it, the person becomes as relaxed as possible, and their instinct for self-preservation switches off. It is lulled to sleep. If someone were to ask me, create the conditions for unconditional acceptance, I would be smiling towards this person. I would agree with everything, completely go along with them, and allow them to do whatever they want. When they want to speak, they can talk as much as they need to. I would completely set myself aside and let them play with me, use me. That's exactly what scammers do. When such psychopathic personalities want to gain power over someone, they first create this warm bath of unconditional acceptance. But these scammers are us as well. When we first meet someone, we want to make a good impression on them. And so we present ourselves in the best possible way. But we can't stay perfect, accommodating, and self-effacing for long. And that's why relationships remain superficial, or I can't go deeper in these relationships, can't establish a psycho-emotional connection. Because I'm under the influence of this magnet, the demand for unconditional acceptance. I'm constantly creating this space of unconditional acceptance. And so if a person comes to a psychotherapist or psychoanalyst, and the analyst, out of fear or for some reason, gives them this unconditional acceptance, then the personality remains unchanged. It doesn't grow, it doesn't change. You can create a warm bath and the person will come, soak in this warm bath, convince themselves that they don't need to change anything, and then go out into the world with the same demand. And here, there will be a lot of suppression, into pits of rage. This suppressed rage is not just something that can't be expressed, it can't even be admitted to oneself. A person literally loses memory of certain things. When they get angry, they don't remember those moments, because if I catch myself being angry, I will lose my path to the kingdom of oneself, because bad people aren't allowed in there. That's why a person constantly has to retouch reality. And all the bad things within them, they either refuse to see or explain away with external reason. So does unconditional acceptance even exist? Or when we encounter it, are we actually encountering pathology from an adult's perspective? From a child's perspective, everything is just as it seems. Well, and truly, we can't be. Among people who disagree with us on everything, who contradict us at every turn, who don't support us, but on the contrary, drag us down, this is the flip side of the same process, the same dream. So, in fact, a person who always agrees, who goes along with everything, creates unconditional acceptance. The only alternative to this is rebellion, disagreement with everything, the rejection of everything the other person says. Because there is only me. There is no other world. There is only my idea of how things should be. And if I don't simply agree, if I don't go along and instead begin to express my own point of view, since I too am a bearer of the same dream, then I start to take up space in this environment. And even if I repeat the same thoughts that the other person expressed, I don't realize it. They seem like my own, and I begin to share them. I express my own subjectivity, and when two people meet who are both strongly influenced by this childhood dream of unconditional acceptance, then in their conversation one remains silent while the other constantly speaks. Afterwards it's as if, you listened to me, I used you, and now I give you the opportunity to use me. Now you speak, and I will just nod along or stay silent. This is social conversation. It's the most optimal, but we don't feel fulfilled by it. This is quite remarkable. On one hand, we want to fill all the space with ourselves, but it's boring to do so because, once again, it's me in the same world. And for change, for evolution, a person must undoubtedly learn to truly perceive others. You might say, wait a minute, you just said that unconditional acceptance is bad, and now you're saying we need to learn to accept unconditionally. Let's set aside that kind of unconditional acceptance for now. Here, let's talk about a different kind of unconditional acceptance. And for this, let's imagine a tree together. A tree that you are looking at. Let's say the tree is growing at the edge of a forest, in a meadow. And as long as you don't need anything from this tree, you can accept it unconditionally. You can observe its branches, its leaves, examine the crown as a whole, look at the bark, and look at the roots that are visible on the surface. And you contemplate this tree, you come to understand it. But as soon as you need to hang a hammock on this tree, your attitude toward the tree changes. You start thinking, okay, can I hang the hammock on this branch? No. Or this is a bad tree, I can't hang it here, a hammock. Or perhaps you want to settle down for a picnic, and then you'll be looking for a spot with some shade. If you can't find it, then it also becomes a bad tree, or it becomes a good tree under which I can have my picnic. You see, this is a consumer attitude, for me, for myself. It immediately deprives us of the ability to truly understand the tree. It's exactly the same when it comes to people. I think all of you can recall situations in life when you met someone who really needed something from you. And you could feel how this person was watching you, not quite with human eyes, but more like an animal, keeping a close watch, constantly observing. And when someone is watching us like that, it feels unpleasant. But at the same time, when we are the ones watching someone else, when we need something from them, we often don't notice it ourselves. And this act of watching, of wanting to desire, to use, to take advantage, when another person becomes just a means or a tool for us, this all deprives us of unconditional acceptance. At that point, we can't truly grasp anything new, because everything that comes to us will immediately be distorted by it. For example, I can often tell where a person's true self is just by reading the comments on my videos. When someone writes that all of this is about others, about their mother-in-law, about men, about women, or someone else entirely, it shows that this person is still very far away. And with pale fingers clutching a pass to the kingdom of their own self, they refuse to recognize anything within themselves, as long as others are to blame for everything bad and I am without fault. Then a person enters the second state. This is all about me. It's all about me. So you see, information is being consumed. It becomes just another tool or means. And the person keeps bringing more and more of it inside, piling it up even further. They consume it like food. And at some point, a person develops a sense of understanding the information. When someone listens about the inner world, about their own world, they can visualize it without this judgment, without comparing themselves to some standard. Am I good or bad? Will I survive or not? How can I fix something in order to gain entry into the kingdom of myself? So you see, all of this about me is also about the hope of entering the kingdom of one's own self. And when a person is able to comprehend, to truly understand information about their inner world, about how they are built, they develop an interest, and then their emotional reactivity decreases significantly. Because if it's about me, then the instinct for self-preservation kicks in and starts to divide this information, whether it's good or bad for me, and the person becomes overwhelmed by emotions and can't hear what I'm saying. For example, I say, in order to work with people, I am compelled to learn without a doubt to accept a person unconditionally. But unconditional acceptance does not mean permissiveness. In order for me to truly understand a person, that is, to explore their inner world without judgment, without the desire to do something to them. Do you remember? It's that constant urge to do something, to somehow use it, without the desire to show off, without the desire to assert myself, without the desire to fix the person, without the desire to intrude into their inner world. When I look at an apple tree with apples hanging on it, I can look at those apples not as food, not as something I want to eat. It is precisely at that moment that I can be a researcher. Then I can then comprehend a person. Well, I don't mean complete understanding, of course, but some understanding of certain aspects. And this understanding is always connected to an interest in that person. I am interested in this person, in how they are made. If I find myself in situations where, for some reason, empty conversation is happening, I always have the opportunity to observe, to watch with interest. But as soon as I start comparing or judging these people, that's it. I've lost unconditional acceptance. I can no longer understand them, and I can't gain anything new for myself. All the information I take in, I will distort with my own subjectivity. I will try it on, compare, judge, and so on. In other words, what was inside remains the same. As you can see, in order to become wiser, it seems you need to prepare yourself, to evolve, to be able to take in something new. That is, I need to grow myself to that point, to that possibility. But I won't be able to stay in that state for long. Unconditional acceptance ends immediately. For example, let's imagine that I'm with this client and I accept them unconditionally. Then we decide to start a business together. This is why it's risky to start a business with your relatives or friends, because unconditional acceptance comes to an end. Now you need something from this person. That's why it's important to maintain the psychoanalytic setting where you have no dealings with clients except for what happens in the session. Otherwise, you stop being analytically perceptive. You either want to use the person or you let yourself be used. So unconditional acceptance means not wanting to make something or someone a means to achieve your own goal. We can't stay in it for long because our subjectivity, our instinct for self-preservation, it can wait, but we can't completely turn off our own needs. Creating a warm bath for someone else, nodding along, agreeing, this is not about unconditional acceptance. That's about pretending. And the person who doesn't realize they're pretending, it will be hard for that person. That is, I understand that I am holding back my own self. I am, in order to be able to perceive another person without judgment, then that requires a great deal of concentration of the mind. And it's only for a moment, 10 minutes or a 50-minute session, when I can hold myself in that state, but I can't hold it forever. And many people who are able to accept others unconditionally still feel as if they are always like that. You always want to believe that's true, but that's impossible. So how do I want to end this video? When we talk about the world in our own name, I don't mean it as something bad. I'm saying that this world is limited. This world does not allow for evolution, growth, earning money, self-fulfillment, or building relationships. There's a lot of pain, fear, and anger in this world. And it is precisely at the moment when we stop imposing ourselves on the world, when we stop trying to use it, that we become open. This is what it means to open up to the world. Because a person is usually like a locked box, closed in on themselves, and here they pretend, they play the role of someone normal and friendly. And all the while, There is a constant effort to restrain this internal standard that is pressing from within. And in unconditional acceptance, we can remain for a certain period of time. That is why a person who is full can look at apples not as food. A person who has recognized and taken responsibility for this desire to possess and to use can more often access the ability to accept unconditionally. I will wrap up now. Please share your thoughts on this topic and try to describe what unconditional acceptance means to you. Not the childish demand for a warm bath of comfort, but the adult version of it. Share your thoughts. And I'd also like to remind you to subscribe to the channel and to like this video. I try to speak in simple, clear language, just as many of you ask and appreciate, about how to deal with your emotions and with situations in everyday life. In other words, it is a universal approach that helps understand what is actually happening inside. So please join in. I invite you. And of course, I also invite you to explore my other projects, my webinars, lectures, and my books. In the end, you gain a clearer understanding of yourself. You receive tools that help you, so the time you spend is returned to you with meaning. I'll say goodbye for now. See you soon.